Ladies, gentlemen, welcome to the Tuesday morning Bible hour. I hope all is well over there. We're getting there. Bit of a way to go yet here. But what is up, John T? What is up, Renee? Are you feeling better? We're getting there. Not quite. I really like the graphic. The window on the world is good, isn't it? Yep. Hold on. I just blow my nose, so I'm going to go back to this one where you can't hear me. And just like that. So we come each morning, whether for the first time or for the 100th time, whether you're just dropping by for 1 minute on your way out the door, or you're settling in for 30 minutes, here we read the Bible. And we want to learn about the living God and his life for us. Luke 24, Jesus said to them, "These are the words which I spoke to you while I was still with you, that all things must be fulfilled which were written in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms concerning me." And he opened their understanding that they might comprehend the scriptures. So we come this morning wanting to understand. What is up, Diane? I would say I'm flying at half mast today so far. Quarter mast yesterday. One cylinder at the moment for OJB, but managing to get stuff done from the boudoir with the laptop. Welcome in, everybody. May we think, may we speak, and may we feel and love in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit, as we come to a grim chapter. Grim for a few reasons. Mainly men. Well, actually entirely sinful men. Look out for some key ways that I don't think this lady is being cared for. And worse than that, one of the key signs given that they were in the ancient church following the Messiah is abused and turned around on its head. Sacred things. Let's jump in. Genesis chapter 34. One day, Dinah was in the kitchen. I made that bit up because of the song. One day, Dinah, the daughter of Jacob and Leah, went to visit some of the young women who lived in the area. But when the local prince, Shechem, son of Hamor the Hivite, saw Dinah, he seized her and raped her. But then he fell, excuse me, just remove, I think it's like a robot thing from chat. What is up, Paula Barrett? Welcome in. We're just starting this grim old chapter. So Shechem, son of Hamor the Hivite, saw Dinah, seized her, raped her. But then he fell in love with her, and he tried to win her affection with tender words. He said to his father Hamor, "Get me this young girl. I want to marry her." It's really interesting at the moment. Don't know if you know the secular psychologist Jordan Peterson. He's got a very high regard for Jesus and the Bible, but not sure how far he goes into it personally. He's starting to show all these statistics, secular statistics, on like doing physical things first as partners before you really committed to one another and married, has just bred real low self-esteem, mental health issues. It's ultimately leads to a lesser lifestyle. I'm like, dude, these secular statistics, they're always catching up with the Bible eventually. Well, here's Shechem doing everything wrong. Well, even the physical thing he did was evil. So Jacob heard that Shechem had defiled his daughter Dinah, but since his sons were out in the fields herding his livestock, he said nothing until they returned. Hamor, Shechem's father, came to discuss the matter with Jacob. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons had come in from the field. As soon as they heard what had happened, they were shocked and furious that their sister had been raped. Shechem had done a disgraceful thing against Jacob's family, something that should never be done. Hamor tried to speak with Jacob and his sons. "My son Shechem is truly in love with your daughter," he said. "Please let let him excuse me. Please let him marry her. In fact, let's arrange other marriages too. You give us your daughters for our sons, and we will give you our daughters for your sons, and you may live among us, and the land is open to you. Settle here and trade with us, and feel free to buy property in this area." Then Shechem himself spoke to Dinah's father and brothers. "Please be kind to me and let me marry her," he begged. "I will give you whatever you ask. No matter what dowry or gift you demand, I will gladly pay it. And just give me the girl as my wife." Now, so far we haven't had the full conversation, I'm sure. It's just what's written down. It is the necessary bits for us to read. But I don't see Jacob really demanding an apology here. But since Shechem had defiled their sister, Dinah, Jacob's sons responded deceitfully to Shechem and his father Hamor. They said to them, "We couldn't possibly allow this because you're not circumcised. It would be a disgrace for our sister to marry a man like you. But here is a solution. If every man among you will become circumcised like we are, then we will give you our daughters, and we'll take your daughters for ourselves. We will live among you and become one people. If you don't agree to be circumcised, we will take her and be on our way." Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know more about what circumcision is, in the YouTube playlist of Park End called Bible Teaching Snippets, there is a video in there called "What's with Circumcision" or something. And this was a sign that you had been cut off from the old life. You were trusting in the divine angel. You were in the ancient church. And one of the key things there was, do not intermingle with pagans. And yet here they are taking that sign to do that very thing. We're going to come and live among you. Just get this sign, as if it's nothing. Like it's the worst case of religion. Just taking the signs, but for your own ultimate gain. Hamor and his son Shechem agreed to their proposal. Shechem wasted no time in acting on this request, for he wanted Jacob's daughter desperately. Shechem was a highly respected member of his family, and he went with his father Hamor to present this proposal to the leaders at the town gate. "These men are our friends," they said. "Let's invite them to live here among us and trade freely. Look, the land is large enough to hold them. We can take their daughters and wives and let them marry ours." But they will consider staying here and becoming one people with us only if all our men are circumcised just as they are. But if we do this, all their livestock and possessions will eventually be ours. Come, let's agree to their terms and let them settle here among us. So all the men in the town council agreed with Hamor and Shechem, and every male in the town was circumcised. That's like me standing on Rita Penny Road and saying, everybody come into membership. Everybody welcome into membership. You don't have to tell me anything that you believe. I'm not going to ask you any questions. We just need you on the books. Doesn't matter if you trust in Jesus and you've repented of sin. Just come in, because we like big churches. What is up, Rachel Freeman? Hi all, I forgot. Ooh, Rachel, wow, what a confession. What a blow on many levels. So all the men in the town council agreed with Hamor and Shechem, and everyone in the town, every male was circumcised. But 3 days later, when their wounds were still sore, 2 of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, who were Dinah's full brothers, took their swords and entered the town without opposition. They slaughtered every male there, including Hamor and his son Shechem. They killed them with their swords, then took Dinah from Shechem's house and returned to their camp. Meanwhile, the rest of Jacob's sons arise. Finding the men slaughtered, they plundered the town because their sister had been defiled there. I mean, we're miles away here from where we should be as a church. Can I just say to anybody just passing through on the way to work, if all you've got is circumcision or church attendance or some sort of religious ceremony that you're clinging to, you're probably drifting far from God in your behavior. Your actions will follow where your heart is. So this morning, let this be a warning. Mere religiosity is nothing. We want to be churches that seek Jesus and want to be like him from the heart outwards. What is that, Matthew Buds? Excuse me. They seized all the flocks and herds and donkeys, everything they could lay their hands on, both inside the town and outside in the fields. They looted all their wealth and plundered their houses. They also took their little children and wives and led them away as captives. After Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have ruined me. You have made me stink among all the people of this land, among all the Canaanites and Perizzites. We are so few that they will join forces and crush us. I will be ruined. My entire household will wipe you out. Will be wiped out. Well, why should we let him threat our sister like a prostitute?" they retorted angrily. "Where were you earlier, Jacob? Any dads out there? Get involved in your daughters' lives. Just going to blow my nose." And we're back. And the other thing with that is classic church. Women aren't consulted on anything. Bad sign. So here we come now to Genesis 35. Few things to note here. Where is Jacob? Is he alive yet in the right way? Is he truly a good church member? Jesus-centered. He's had his name changed. He doesn't use it much at all yet. Where is he at the end of this one? Then God said to Jacob, get ready and move to Bethel and settle there. Build an altar there to God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother. Oh, that one. That all these appearances and the like wrestling matches he's having with God. There's this book I'm getting into, making notes about. It's by a guy called Matthew Bates, and it's called The Birth of the Trinity. And if you like fairly in-depth theological books, check that out. And it's all about what we believe here in Park End, and what increasing number of people are starting to teach again, that all these like Trinitarian appearances, this invisible God, this visible one, and this God that fills people, it's not like a New Testament retrospective reading back onto the text. Oh, like we're now in the New Testament era, so we know about the Trinity, and therefore we read it back when we see these stories into it, but they didn't see it at the time. It's all about how there and then they had these prosopological experiences, which means they saw the face of God. They saw things right there and then. They were like looking at God and wrote about it. Prosopological exegesis. There you go. There's the fancy word. As opposed to typology, like David reminds us of Jesus because of this. It's like, nah, that's all right, but it doesn't go quite far enough. David actually saw things and wrote them down about Jesus. So there's your book, Matthew Bates, homework, The Birth of the Trinity. How the New Testament apostles read the Old Testament. What is up, John Organovsky? Whew. Genesis 35. Then God said to Jacob, get ready and move to Bethel and settle there. Build an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau. So Jacob told everyone in his household, get rid of all your pagan idols. Purify yourselves and put on clean clothing. Why didn't you say that before, Jacob? We are now going to Bethel, where I will build an altar to the God who answered my prayers when I was in distress. He has been with me. Wherever I have gone. So they gave Jacob all their pagan idols and earrings, and he buried them under the great tree near Shechem. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just on your way to work this morning, I would get rid of any pagan idols that you have in your house. They're not as good as Jesus. As they set out, a terror from God spread over the people in all the towns of that area, so no one attacked Jacob's family. Eventually, Jacob and his household arrived at Luz, also called Bethel in Canaan. Jacob built an altar there and named the place El Bethel, which means the God of Bethel, because God had appeared to him when he was fleeing from his brother Esau. So after this, Rebekah's old nurse, Deborah, died. She was buried beneath the oak. She was buried beneath the oak tree in the valley below Bethel. Ever since, the tree has been called Alon Bakuth, which means oak of weeping. Now that Jacob had returned from Padan Aram, God appeared to him again at Bethel. God blessed him, saying, your name is Jacob, but you will not be called Jacob any longer, for now your name will be Israel. So God renamed him Israel. It's like, dude, we've been here before. You're a Christian. Can you please start acting like it? You bear the name. Ladies and gentlemen, any trusters in the Lord Jesus Christ this morning, you are a Christian. You bear the family name. Then God said, I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply, and you will become a great nation. Even many nations, kings will be among your descendants, and I will give you the land I once gave to Abraham and Isaac. Yes, I will give it to you and your descendants after you. Then Jacob went up from the place where he had spoken to Jacob. Jacob set up a stone pillar to mark the place where God had spoken to him. Then he poured wine over it as an offering to God and anointed the pillar with olive oil. And Jacob named the place Bethel, which means house of God, because he had spoken to him there. Leaving Bethel, Jacob and his clan moved on towards Ephrath. But Rachel went into labor while they were some distance away. Her labor pains were intense. After very hard delivery, the midwife finally exclaimed, "Don't be afraid, you have another son." It's a bit like the incident in my kitchen, for those that know about it. Rachel was about to die, but with her last breath, she named the baby Ben-Oni, which means son of my sorrow. The baby's father, however, called him Benjamin, which means son of my right hand. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is, Bethlehem. That bit's not like in my kitchen. Jacob set up a stone monument over Rachel's grave, and it can be seen there to this day. Then Jacob traveled on and camped beyond Migdal Eder. While he was living there, Reuben had intercourse with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Jacob soon heard about it. These are the names of the 12 sons. Frisky bunch, as we said yesterday. The sons of Leah were Reuben, Jacob's oldest, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's servants, were Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Zilpah, Leah's servant, were Gad and Asher. These are the names of the sons who were born at Jacob at Padan Aram. So Jacob returned to his father Isaac in Mamre, which is near Kiriath Arba, now called Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had both lived as foreigners. Not to be confused with Kiriath Jearim, which I think was where Judas Iscariot was born. Isaac lived for 180 years, then he breathed his last and died at a ripe old age, joining his ancestors in death, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him, and there goes Isaac. Like us all, a mixed existence. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Bible Hour. We are ploughing through the book of Genesis, and so far what's been speaking to me is don't be merely circumcised, but make sure your heart today is towards the Lord Jesus Christ. And I'm not saying I even am circumcised, but I am definitely baptized. Hope you're all doing okay out there. What a day it is. "35 chapters down. 6% of the way through the Bible already. You're nearly at 10%. GG, everybody. Good game. Here we go. This is the account of the descendants of Esau, also known as Edom. Esau married 2 young women from Canaan. Oh, sorry, I didn't put in my notes. My children's Bible notes. Gotta get that 35 in. Oh, I got it. those that don't know, I'm always a bit disappointed with children's Bibles, especially the Old Testament bit. Basically making God out to be Unitarian and they just bundle it all together, God. So we're going to do a Park End children's Bible with all the Jesus bits in. Esau married 2 women from Canaan. Ada, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna, the granddaughter of Zibeon the Hivite. He also married his cousin Basemath, not Basement, who was the daughter of Ishmael, the sister of Nebaioth. Ada gave birth to a son named Eliphaz for Esau. Basemath gave birth to a son named Reuel. Elihobamah gave birth to sons named Yeush, Jalem, and Korah. And these sons were born to Esau in the land of Canaan. So, they know the real God, but there's a bit of marrying these pagans, isn't there? Mix, like the Samaritans were. Mixed bunch. Esau took his wives, his children, his entire household, along with the livestock and cattle, all the wealth he had acquired in the land of Canaan, and moved away from his brother Jacob. There was not enough land to support them both, because of all the livestock and possessions they had acquired. So Esau, also known as Edom, settled in the hill country of Seir. This is the account of Esau's descendants, the Edomites, who lived in the hill country of Seir. These are the names of Esau's son Eliphaz, son of Esau's wife Ada, and Reuel, the son of Esau's wife Basemath. The descendants of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Canaan. Timnah, the concubine of Esau and son Eliphaz, gave birth to a son named Amalek. These are the descendants of Esau's wife Ada. Amalekites. You got it. The descendants of Reuel were Nahath, Zerah, Shema, Mizah. These are the descendants of Esau's wife Basemath. Esau also had sons through Oholibamah, daughter of Anna, granddaughter of Zibeon. The names were Jeush, Jalem, and Korah. These are the descendants of Esau who became leaders in various clans. Just going to blow my nose a second, everybody. Descendants of Esau's oldest son, Eliphaz, became the leaders of the clans of Teman, Omar, Zepho, Kenaz, Korah, Gatam, and Amalek. Now, there's a lot of people who become a bit pesky there. Remember some of those names? These are the clans, the leaders of the land of Edom, who descended from Eliphaz. All these were descendants of Esau's wife Ada. The descendants of Esau's son Reuel became the leaders of the clans of Nahath, Zerah, Shema, and Mizah. These are the clan leaders in the land of Edom who descended from Reuel, and these were the descendants of Esau's wife, Basemath. The descendants of Esau and his wife Oholibamah became the leaders of the clans of Jeush, Jalem, and Korah. These are the clan leaders who descended from Esau's wife Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna. These are the clans descended from Esau, also known as Edom, identified by their clan leaders. How do you stop your children and grandchildren becoming pagans and not following Jesus? Well, that's a question for you to think about today. I think there's only so much you can do, but definitely being connected to a church and, showing that you care about the Lord Jesus Christ and constantly recalling his goodness to you will probably seep in. These are the names of tribes that descended from Seir the Horite. They lived in the land of Edom, Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anna, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. These were the Horite clan leaders, the descendants of Seir, who lived in the land of Edom. The descendants of Lotan were Hori and Himam. Lotan's sister was named Timnah. The descendants of Shobal were Alvan, Simon, and Alvan, Manahath, Ebal, Shepho, and Onam. The descendants of Zibeon were Ai and Anna. This is Anna who discovered the hot springs in the wilderness while he was grazing his father's donkeys. Down in history. Remembered forever. The descendants of Anna were his son Dishon and his daughter Oholibamah. The descendants of Dishon were Hemdan, Eshban, Ithran, and Kiran. The descendants of Esau were Bilhan, Zavan, and Achan. The descendants of Dishan were Uz and Aran, and these were the leaders of the Horite clans: Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Aina, Dishon, mustard, maybe, Ezer, and Dishan. The Horite clans are named after their clan leaders who lived in the land of Seir. Rulers of Edom. Edom. These are the kings who ruled in the land of Edom before any king ruled over the Israelites. Bela, son of Beor, who ruled in Edom from his city of Dinahaba. When Bela died, Jobab, son of Zerah from Bozrah, became king in his place. When Jobab died, Husham, the land of the Temanites, became king in his place. When Husham died, Hadad, son of Bedad, became king in his place and ruled from the city of Avith. He was the one who defeated the Midianites in the land of Moab. When Hadad died, Samlah from the city of Masrekah became king in his place. When Samlah died, Shaul from the city of Rehoboth on the river became king in his place. When Shaul died, Baal-Hanan, son of Akbor, became king in his place. When Baal-Hanan, son of Akbor, died, Hadad became king in his place and ruled from the city of Pau. His wife was Mehethabab, the daughter of Metrad and the granddaughter of Me-Zebab. These are the names of the leaders of the clans descended from Esau, who lived in place named for them: Timnah, Alva, Jeher, Oholibamah, Elah, Pinon, Kinez, Demon, Mizpah, Magdiel, and Iram. These are the leaders of the clans of Edom, listed according to the settlements in the land they occupied. They all descended from Esau, the ancestor of the Edomites. So there we are. Many of those become enemies of the ancient church. As we reflect today on how best we can influence those close to us so that they do not become enemies of the church. How do people not become enemies of the church? I tell you one big way people do become enemies of the church: when we run our churches down to people and then we expect them to come. Now then, here we go. Here's a big one. So it's interesting, right, that before we get to the big J, Joseph, we are given an account of Esau and all his descendants. Edom and the Edomites crop up many times in the Bible. It's crucial that we understand who they are and how they relate to Israel. The people of Edom are the brothers of the Israelites, and they are never far from the life of Israel. All right, so some of them are in, some of them are out. They're a mixed bunch. But then we get to this chapter. And we excuse me. Wait a second. And we're told straight away that Jacob settled in the land of Canaan. But, ladies and gentlemen, it's about to change. Because the covenant people, the ancient church, they're so up the creek, they're not quite ready yet to populate the promised land. Loads of them have gone wacky. They're no longer trusting in the Messiah, the angel, the promised seed. The Abrahamic faith seems a distant memory, as we've seen in the Dinah chapter. So the next 10 chapters, everybody, and you can do the maths as to when that stops, involve the movement of all these covenant people from the promised land to Egypt. And it seems a big tragedy, but in the tragedies of life, the Lord still has his purposes with someone whose name begins with a J, which doesn't mean much because that's English. So they got to learn some basic gospel lessons before they arrive in the heavenly land. That's not going to happen now for about 400 years. So enjoy this while it lasts, because it lasts for about one more verse. Jacob settled again in the land of Canaan when his father lived as a foreigner. This is the account of Jacob and his family. When Joseph was 17 years old, he often tended his father's flocks. He worked for his half-brothers, the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah. But Joseph reported to his father some of the bad things his brothers were doing. Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other children because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. So one day Jacob had a special gift made for Joseph, a beautiful robe. But his brothers hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest of them. They couldn't say a kind word to him. Isn't that sad? Ladies and gentlemen, is there someone that you've been jealous of and secretly unhappy with, but today you can say a kind word to them? I do feel for Joseph. This stupid mouse. Man, I gotta have to say a kind word to the person who invented this mouse, because I've got nothing but bad feelings for him at the moment. Get off! Get off! Stop it! Okay, we're back. One night, Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brothers about it, they hated him more than ever. Listen to this dream, he said. We were out in the field, tying up bundles of grain. Suddenly, my bundle stood up, and your bundles all gathered around and bowed low before mine. His brothers responded, so you think you'll be our king, do you? Do you actually think you will reign over us? And they hated him all the more because of his dreams and the way he talked about them. Soon Joseph had another dream, and again he told his brothers about it. Listen, I have had another dream, he said. The sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed low before me. Joseph, bit of tact. This time he told the dream to his father as well as to his brothers, but his father scolded him. What kind of dream is that? He asked. Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? Oh yes, they will, and let me tell you why, everybody. Because the one who was in the underground prison of darkness was taken from there in Egypt, risen up to the highest place of Prime Minister of Egypt. And then people come and pay homage to him because he is, in that sense, reminding us of the one who was low in the ground for 3 days and then risen up to the highest places as the Prime Minister and Prince and King of the world and the cosmos. And all will come and pay homage to him. Jesus. And we get to do that today. But while his brothers were jealous of Joseph, his father wondered what the dreams meant. Soon after this, Joseph's brothers went to pasture their father's flocks at Shechem. When they had been gone for some time, Jacob said to Joseph, "Your brothers are pasturing the sheep at Shechem. Get ready, and I will send you to them." "I'm ready to go," Joseph replied. "Go and see how your brothers and flocks are getting along," Jacob said. "Then come back and bring me a report." So Jacob sent him on his way, and Joseph traveled to Shechem from their home in the valley of Hebron. When he arrived there, a man from the area noticed him wandering around the countryside. "What are you looking for?" he asked. "I'm looking for my brothers," Joseph replied. "Do you know where they are pasturing their sheep?" "Yes," the man told him. "They have moved on from here, but I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph followed his brothers to Dothan and found them there. When Joseph's brothers saw him coming, they recognized him in the distance. As he approached, they made plans to kill him. "Here comes the dreamer," they said. "Come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns. We can tell our father a wild animal has eaten him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams." But when Reuben heard of their scheme, he came to Joseph's rescue. "Let's not kill him," he said. "Why should we shed any blood? Let's just throw him into this empty cistern here in the wilderness. Then he'll die without our laying a hand on him." Reuben was secretly planning to rescue Joseph and return him to his father. You know that picture in Nazi Germany? There's everybody saluting apart from that one guy. I don't think it's Bonhoeffer, but it's someone like that. Like it says, "Be that guy when the moment comes." Well, first of all, most of us wouldn't be. And second of all, though, Reuben does a bit of that here. If you do come across evil today, it's going to be tough to stand against it, especially if there's a crowd behind it, a crowd of your friends. But, you know, at least Reuben here has a go, and maybe we should have a go as well. So when Joseph arrived, his brothers ripped off the beautiful robe he was wearing. Then they grabbed him and threw him into the cistern. Now the cistern was empty and there was no water in it. Then, just as they were sitting down to eat, they looked up and saw a caravan of camels in the distance coming toward them. It was a group of Ishmaelite traders taking a load of gum, balm, and aromatic resin from Gilead down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain by killing our brother? We'd have to cover up the crime. Instead of hurting him, let's sell him to those Ishmaelite traders. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." And his brothers agreed. So when the Ishmaelites, who were Midianite traders, came by, Joseph's brothers pulled him out of the cistern and sold him to them for 20 pieces of silver. And the traders took him to Egypt. 20 shekels, 8 ounces. Sometime later, Reuben returned to get Joseph out of the cistern. When he discovered that Joseph was missing, he tore his clothes in grief. Then he went back to his brothers and lamented, "The boy is gone. What will I do now?" Then the brothers killed a young goat, dipped Joseph's robe in its blood. They sent the beautiful robe to their father with this message: "Look at what we found. Doesn't this robe belong to your son?" Their father recognized it immediately. "Yes," he said, "it is my son's robe. A wild animal must have eaten him. Joseph has clearly been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes and dressed himself in burlap. He mourned deeply for his son for a long time. His family all tried to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "I will go to my grave mourning for my son," he would say, and then he would weep. Meanwhile, the Midianite traders arrived in Egypt, and there they sold Joseph to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Potiphar was captain of the palace guard. Interesting. Let's say a few things about this Tamar. She's in a real tricky one in this chapter. And I just think the men are a disaster here again. Ladies, if you ever marry a man, make sure he's not a disaster. Those people are few and far between. Judah, he's also moved in with the pagans, but he does turn back. Basically, church is all over the place. About this time, Judah left home and moved to Adullam, where he stayed with a man named Hira. There he saw a Canaanite woman, the daughter of Shua, and he married her. Not allowed to do that. When he slept with her, she became pregnant and gave birth to a son, and he named the boy Then she became pregnant again and gave birth to another son, and she named him Onan. And when she gave birth to a third son, she named him Shelah. At the time of Shelah's birth, they were living in Kezib. In the course of time, Judah arranged for his firstborn son, to marry a woman named Tamar. But was wicked. He was a wicked man in the Lord's sight. So the Lord took his life. Now, 155 people will die today. All of them, their lives will be taken by that same Lord. Then Judah said to Er's brother Onan, "Go and marry Tamar. As our law requires of the brother of a man who has died, you must produce an heir for your brother." But Onan was not willing to have a child who would not be his own heir. So whenever he had intercourse with his brother's wife, he spilled the semen on the ground. This prevented her from having a child who would belong to his brother. But the Lord considered it evil for Onan to deny a child to his dead brother. So the Lord took Onan's life too. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, "Go back to your parents' home and remain a widow until my son Shelah is old enough to marry you." But Judah didn't really intend to do this because he was afraid Shelah would also die like his two brothers. So Tamar went back to live in her father's home. Some years later, Judah's wife died. After the time of mourning was over, Judah and his friend Hira, the Adullamite, went up to Timnah to supervise the shearing of his sheep. Someone told Tamar, "Look, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep." Tamar was aware that Shelah had grown up, but no arrangement had been made for her to come and marry him. So she's been done over again, by the way. So she changed out of her widow's clothing and covered herself with a veil to disguise herself. Then she sat beside the road at the entrance of the village of Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. Judah noticed her and thought that she was a prostitute since she had covered her face. So he stopped and propositioned her, "Let me have sex with you," he said, not realizing that she was his own daughter-in-law. "How much will you pay to have sex with me?" Tamar asked. "I'll send you a young goat from my flock," Judah promised. "But what will you give me to guarantee that you will send me the goat?" She asked. "What kind of guarantee do you want?" He replied. She answered, "Leave me your identification seal and its cord, and the walking stick you are carrying." So Judah gave them to her. Then he had intercourse with her, and she became pregnant. Afterward, she went back home, took off her veil, put her widow's clothing on as normal. So you got Judah here. He's just sold his brother. Then he went and married a pagan. Now he's sleeping with prostitutes. And he's not keeping his promises. And he's one of the fathers of the faith. That is the kindness and the graces and the forgiveness of the Lord that we're dealing with. Later, Judah asked his friend Hira, the Adullamite, to take the young goat to the woman and to pick up the things that he had given as his guarantee, but Hira couldn't find her. So he asked the men who lived there, Where can I find the shrine prostitute who was sitting beside the road at the entrance to Canaan? We've never had a shrine prostitute here, they replied. So Hira returned to Judah and told him, I couldn't find her anywhere. The men of the village claim they've never had a shrine prostitute there. Then let her keep the things I gave her, Judah said. I sent the young goat as we agreed, but you couldn't find her. We'd be the laughing stock of the village if we went back again to look for her. It's all about saving face, isn't it? About 3 months later, Judah was told, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has acted like a prostitute, and now because of this she's pregnant. Bring her out and let her be burned, Judah demanded. But as they were taking her out to kill her, she sent this message to her father-in-law, the man who owns these things made me pregnant. Look closely. Whose seal and cord and walking stick are these? Judah recognized them immediately and said, she is more righteous than I am, because I didn't arrange for her to marry my son Shelah. And Judah never slept with Tamar again. When the time came for Tamar to give birth, it was discovered that she was carrying twins. While she was in labor, one of these babies reached out his hand. The midwife grabbed it and tied a scarlet string around the child's wrist, announcing this one came out first. But then he pulled his hand back in, and out came his brother. What? The midwife exclaimed. How did you break out first? So he was named Perez. Then the baby with the scarlet string on his wrist was born, and he was named Zerah. Perez, meaning breaking out. Zerah meaning scarlet. Can I just suggest today, as you go about your day, ladies and gentlemen, you avoid prostitutes, lies, the selling of your family members, deceit, and pretty much everything else Judah did in that chapter. But here we are, back in Egypt now, pinging back and forth. And we have a man in difficult times who remains a great witness to the Lord. When Joseph was taken to Egypt by the Ishmaelite traders, he was purchased by Potiphar, an Egyptian officer. Potiphar was captain of the guard for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. The Lord was with Joseph, so he succeeded in everything he did as he served in the home of his Egyptian master. Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did. This pleased Potiphar, so he soon made Joseph his personal attendant. He put him in charge of his entire household and everything he owned. From the day Joseph was put in charge of his master's household and property, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's household for Joseph's sake. All his household affairs ran smoothly. All his crops and livestock flourished, so Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. With Joseph there, he didn't worry about a thing, except what kind of food to eat. Joseph was a very handsome and well-built young man, and Potiphar's wife soon began to look at him lustfully. Come and sleep with me, she demanded. But Joseph refused. Look, he told her, my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one here has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. I'm glad John went to bed half an hour ago, isn't it? These chapters. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would be a great sin against God. She kept putting pressure on Joseph day after day, but he refused to sleep with her. And he kept out of her way as much as possible. One day, however, no one else was around. When he went in to do his work, she came and grabbed him by the cloak, demanding, come on, sleep with me. Joseph tore himself away, but he left his cloak in her hand as he ran from the house. When she saw that she was holding his cloak and he had fled, she called out to her servants. Soon all the men came running. Look, she said, my husband has brought this Hebrew slave here to make fools of us. He came into my home to rape me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream, he ran outside and got away, but he left his cloak behind me. Ladies and gentlemen, did you know that false allegations of sexual assault are one of the oldest sins in the world? She kept the cloak with her until her husband came home. Then she told her story. That Hebrew slave you brought me into our house tried to come in and fool around with me, she said. But when I screamed, he ran outside, leaving his cloak with me. Potiphar was furious when he heard his wife's story about how Joseph treated her. So he took Joseph and threw him into a prison where the king's prisoners were held, and there he remained. But the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. The warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. The Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. The Lord will be with us today. We better not start chapter 20 because it's 2.5 minutes to the hour. So we begin tomorrow with Genesis chapter 40. So a lot of things going on today, folks. A lot of immorality and sin in the life of the church. Pray that the Lord will keep you from that today. I hope something we've read today will bring you closer to the Lord and see his goodness. And if you are feeling like you are in Egypt, in a pit, in a prison, may the Lord be ever so close to you today. Cling to him, and he will get you through in some way or another. I mean, it might get a lot worse, but he'll be with you, doing something good in it. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. God will it, COVID permitting, we'll be back tomorrow. We have a meal on Friday on Zoom at 6 p.m. where I'll be teaching about the Feast of Tabernacles or booths. And I have found a replacement for myself on Sunday because I'm not allowed to be around people at the moment. So stay tuned to find out who.